Welcome to today's episode, where we are honored to have Dr. Vasudeva Das, a renowned scholar with an illustrious international reputation. Dr. Das holds a PhD in Applied Management and Decision Sciences with a focus on leadership and organizational change from Walden University, and an M.Ed. Phil in Critical and Creative Thinking from Enugu, Nigeria. Dr. Das has contributed significantly to academic thought with over 35 publications in international peer-reviewed journals. His work often explores cutting-edge topics such as leadership, management, and decision-making processes, and he has authored pivotal studies including a comparative analysis of Carter and Height's change models, strategies for de-escalation of COVID-19 related fraud, and innovative approaches to leadership in faith-based nonprofits. An active member of several prestigious professional associations such as the Academy of Management and the International Leadership. We are privileged to dive deep into his insights of love, peace, unity and diversity, social justice, and the application of synergistic thinking in spiritual and organizational contexts. Dr. Das is also a recipient of the International Award of Excellence from ISKCON Sri Mayapur in India, reflecting his commitment to fostering positive change and community development globally. Join us as we explore the intersections of leadership, social justice, and spiritual wisdom with Dr. Vasudeva Das. Dr. Vasudeva Das, or Bhakti Vasudeva Swami, welcome to the Bhakti Moons podcast. Yes. So yes, feel free to start whenever you like.
All right. So yeah, I was on a tour in the Caribbean. So I went to Trinidad, Suriname, and Guyana, and approximately I was over there, those three countries, for 1 month. I stayed in Trinidad for two weeks, and in Suriname and Guyana for another a little bit more than 2 weeks. So it was an exciting experience in the sense that we had a chance to participate in some local programs like the Harinam, Ratha Yatra. We had participated in two Ratha Yatras in Trinidad. It was pretty nice, because then they had a chance to be able to come to participate in chanting the glories of the Lord, and whether they like it or not, to become entangled in a web of devotion and purification of the mirror of the dusty mirror of the heart. So those were exciting lived experiences in Trinidad. And we regularly also gave some classes, Bhagavatam classes every morning. And the amazing thing is that, the youths in all these Caribbean countries, they are so really charged up in devotional activities. So that's a good sign for these countries for their future, because the young people, the youngsters, are the torch bearers of the movement in the future, and they have developed some very deep interest in helping to champion different causes in the movement in terms of the preaching and management. So that's a good sign for these Caribbean countries. In Suriname, we had a chance to meet with the Attorney General, Commissioner for Justice of the country, And guess what? She happens to be an initiated devotee, you know. And so she used her position to distribute Bhagavad Gita and to preach like anything, you know. She meets dignitaries from all over the world who come to visit Suriname, and you know, she gives them gifts of Papa sets of books, Bhagavad Gita, and so this is how people, devotees who have influential position, can really help in furthering the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I was very much enthused meeting her, and I'm supposed to also check in with her about some research I'm doing on strategies for de-escalating corruption in the in judiciary. I have a project like that on now. I've done some project and published a work similar to that. That was some years ago in the Journal of Financial Crime, a London-based journal, academic journal. But this very research is actually focusing on America, the judicial system in America, how we've seen the things that are developing sometimes in a very wrong way, and people are even becoming jittery about what the future of America could be, a future of the whole system could be, with these unhealthy developments in the judiciary. So yeah, I'm doing some work on that and focusing on how to provide solutions to this type of mind-boggling, disturbing situations, because the judiciary is supposed to be the last hope of the common man. And if it becomes corrupt, and so the beauty of America is that no one seems to be above the law. I know of I know of a chief justice in America, past chief justice who was jailed. Yeah. So that's a good thing. You know, this type of things, they don't happen in many other countries. So I'm doing some work on that. And meeting that lady was like, it created a lot of impetus for my research, because she's willing to make some input in terms of how to minimize, you know, corruption in the judiciary. So I was there, and then I met a number of very intelligent young devotees, intellectuals, workers. In fact, the director of that museum is a young devotee who is in charge of that project. So he just uses position to invite me to come to give a talk on the anniversary, I think the 151 anniversary of the abolition of slavery in Suriname. And so they wanted me to make a presentation on, and that program, a number of the attendees are high-profile professionals, professors, and anti-slavery activists. So it was a nice setting, and I gave a very simple presentation on emancipation from mental slavery. Because in most cases, people, governments and well-meaning individuals, they're very much against slavery. And no, we don't find people or governments who are really talking about mental slavery. And it is because of mental slavery that we have even our own former president like Trump. He got into the mess that he's been in and struggling to get out from. Okay. So people don't talk about that, this other aspect of our enslavement to the mind, to the unruly mind, and the sensory modalities. So when I raised these issues during my presentation, the people, they were very intrigued, you know. So then we came to Guyana. Guyana, we also had participated in the Ratha Yatra, and we met with the with one of their ministers who was invited for the Ratha Yatra. Guyana has always been a very much so charged with positive vibration. Because in Guyana, you go on Harinam, I went with Harinam with some of the devotees. You go on Harinam, and just by chanting in the street, people just come to give donations without even soliciting for it. And Guyana is a place where you have lotus flowers growing by the side of the road, by the side of the street. Lotus flower is so difficult to cultivate, even in India, but in Guyana they grow on the street, by the side of the street. It shows the pious merit that the people are actually having. So I like those countries that I visited, and they actually want me to come back before the end of the year. So I will see what happens, because I'll be leaving for Europe.
Makunda's in this thing.
I'll be leaving for Europe the end of the month, and then come back to America for September, and then leave for South America again September 27. But hopefully, so far, that is my proposed itinerary. You know, Krishna has to give his final verdict. But so far, so good. The places I've been through, my plans, our plans walked through. Krishna, you know, permitted us to go through all of those situations, the countries that went through. So hopefully that this other pending itinerary is also fulfilled. Yeah, so let's get back to this today's topic. You wanted us to say something about leadership, because a number of devotees are getting involved in leadership, especially second generation and even third generation devotees are getting involved in leadership. And so we have to be able to understand what the type of leadership that generally is implemented or is adopted for sustainable growth, for sustainable intergenerational growth in a faith-based nonprofit. See, let's get this thing clear. There are many types of organizations. That is the faith-based nonprofit organization, which is ISKCON fits in there. And there are other organizations like educational organizations. So there are even the leadership specializations at the PhD level. They are different. One may do his PhD in educational leadership. One may do his PhD in business leadership, business administration, a doctorate, what do you call, a doctor of business administration. And one may do their PhD in organizational leadership, focusing, maybe some cases even focusing on faith-based nonprofits. So the way that the systems run are completely different. Because, for instance, in educational leadership, you are the authority, and so you're like the boss, and the students will have to gravitate towards your propositions and your agenda, or your ideologies, your initiatives. And similarly, in the business enterprises, there is also that figurehead where authority is based on the fact that you receive a salary from the company and you just have to follow the grand norms of the company. However, the system in a faith-based nonprofit, where we have volunteers working for the organization, the system of managing such an organization is different. And unfortunately, a majority of organizations, they don't have any set down scientific leadership model that they use for governance in their faith-based nonprofits. And therefore, we find I got a lot of reports, a lot of complaints from temple presidents. As I was in the Caribbean, one temple president in America wrote me a very long letter, like 2-page letters, complaining about how the pujaris are refusing to do their service and all this stuff. And I know the challenges that people face. And this is one of the reasons is also that people resist. You see, we humans, we are, following orders is not our default condition. We want to be independent. We want to be the controllers. We want to be the ones in charge. And so if someone else is in charge, in general, we find it very difficult to follow them, to support them. It's just our default condition. We're resistant to change. I'll give you a typical example. If you have even a 2-year-old kid, you tell them, sit down there. And that's the time they get up. They want to show you that I'm not here to carry out your instructions. So we imbibe that type of culture, and it affects the system of leadership in our communities a lot. And therefore, if someone is hoping or gearing up efforts towards taking up some responsibility in a faith-based nonprofit, where people are not paid, workers are not paid, they're volunteers, we have to understand the type of leadership model that is applicable to such a setting. We can't go and adopt a political leadership to govern or to lead a faith-based nonprofit. We can't adopt a business leadership for running enterprises. That's what the entrepreneurs use. We can't adopt those type of leadership to lead a congregation of people who are volunteers in a faith-based nonprofit. And I think this is one of the major problems that most leaders in or managers in faith-based nonprofits, they have difficulty in dealing with the resistance to change from the volunteers. Now, volunteers have to be treated in a very, very different way. Indeed, volunteers have to be treated like the way you treat your loved ones, your loved family members. Yes, you are assume the position of authority, and at the same time, you're lovingly disposed, you're caring, you're friendly. At the same time, you are able to be a good listener. I see this quality very much in Bhakti theater, because I remember when even I was younger, he will, because I just give you a little bit background of myself. Now, when I was with Bhakti Vasudeva Swami in Africa, I was pretty young at the time, but I was also very tough. And therefore, if I perceive something, I would like to address it. So I remember one time he made some changes, some administrative changes, and he put one devotee in charge of a very sensitive project that has to do with personnel management and financial management. So, but then that devotee have narrated to me his explorations when he traveled overseas, when he traveled to some countries. And those explorations were unethical explorations. But because I assume a relationship with him that is based on friendship, not based on authority. So, he told me all this stuff. And when Bhakti Swami announced some changes and then he put him in that sensitive position, I was a little bit worried, because this is somebody who had just told me all the stuff that he did. And therefore, after the announcements and all this stuff, I went to meet him. I went to meet Bhakti Swami at his quarters, and I told him the whole situation. I said that if I don't tell you this, I will get some reactions because I know these things and I don't tell you. So this guy that you put, he may look to be a very nice guy, hardworking, but he just told me the stuff that he did, unethical behaviors he could even involved in. And people don't know. But he told me because I'm his friend. And so I wanted to let you know what your final decision is okay. But I needed to just let you know so that if something's come up in the future, I'm not going to be there to share part of the car. So, see, I was just a brahmachari, okay? Some small brahmachari. But you know what? He took that my statement very seriously. So the next day, he changed the whole administrative setting. So we have situations. One of my professors, he mentions how humans, we have, and even the very literatures mention to us or indicate that we have defaults. We have deficiencies. We don't know everything. And therefore, because we can also make mistakes, we should have a sense of adjustment based on the fact that we can be fallible. So in some cases, leaders who are aware of the fact that they can make statements that may jeopardize the future of the organization or may jeopardize the future of the community. And if someone comes to tell them something, at least they should listen. So I take the example of Bhakti Swami very, to heart, that I try to live by that principle. For instance, that I tell my disciples and my mentees to always reach out to me if I say something that they don't like, or I do something they don't like. So there was a situation, I remember one of my mentees, she was studying at Columbia on full-time scholarship. And so I was communicating with one professor. I was going to one country, so I was communicating with this professor about some programs that we need to have when I come there to their country. She was arranging some program for me to present to the faculty of management in the university. And so I put this mentee, because she was my secretary at the time. So I put this mentee on the chat, on the chat forum. And so I don't remember exactly what I said. And this young girl, she was under 20 at the time. She inboxed me. She wrote me to say, Maharaj, what you said to that professor is so wrong. It's so so I wrote back to her to say, okay, how should I have put it? You tell me. And so she wrote out the way I should have put it, because she felt that if even the professor was being humble because of whatever, because I'm a Swami or whatever, it doesn't go well with her. And so I told her to, okay, tell me what, write to me, send message to me about how you feel or you felt that should have been written. So she wrote that, and she's also a big time editor of undergraduate journal. So she wrote, and then I sent that message exactly to the professor. So my point is, as leaders, we are not perfect. We should be ready to learn. That is a credible situation that any leader should be able to adapt. I'll give you an example. I saw something that one professor wrote about our teachings in a federal university journal. At that time, I was not even having a master's degree. But I just saw the thing that he said a lot of good things, but then he said something that was completely out of place. So I went to meet the editor-in-chief of that journal and said that what this professor said, there are some errors in what this guy said. There are some improper statements he made. So, the editor-in-chief of that journal, he had his PhD in English language, and he's the head of department for philosophy. And you know what he told me? He said, hey, go and write a rejoinder. We are here to learn. We don't know everything. That is a professor. That is a professor, head of department. And therefore, we have to understand that we can be wrong. Leaders should understand we can be wrong in our policies. We can be wrong in our decisions. We can be wrong in our sense of perception. So we should be ready to accept suggestions, to accept corrections. I'll give you a typical example. Rupa Goswami. Now, Rupa Goswami, when Rupa Goswami and his team and the other Goswamis, they were in Vrindavan. So there was this Mirabai, that famous celebrity in India, a great singer. She came to Vrindavan and she sent a request that she wanted to have darshan of Rupa Goswami. I'm talking about leadership, how leaders should be. We are supposed to be corrigible. In other words, we should either be we should correct ourselves, or if someone comes to point out some mistakes that they perceive, we should try to reason with that person. So Mirabai, he sent a message to Rupa Goswami. These are scenarios in our own tradition. She sent a message to Rupa Goswami. He said, I want to have your darshan. And Rupa Goswami wrote back to her to say that, send a message back to her that I'm a Swami. Hey, I don't give darshan to women. And Mirabai responded that, oh, I thought Krishna is the only Purusa and that we are all Prakriti. And then she said, so how is it that you are now a Purusa? I thought that we are all Prakriti. You know what? We are all females before Krishna. And Rupa Goswami, you know what he said? This is the acharya of our sampradaya. You know what Rupa Goswami said? He said, yes, you are right. Come have your darshan. And therefore, we should be, we should not think that we know too much. Leaders should not think that we know too much. The managers should not think we know too much. Senior people should not think we know too much. And therefore, it is important for any leader to be a good listener. And being a good listener, you will gain the support and love of your team members. They will trust you. When you communicate any change initiative, they will work with you fervently to be able to achieve that objective. But as soon as they perceive that we are acting as if we know it all, they're not ready to cooperate. And this is what I perceive in one of those situations where the president wrote me saying the pujaris are reclining from coming forward to do their services. Because in most cases, majority of us, we are not trained in leadership skills, nor are we trained in management skills. And a number of the managers or leaders in our movement, we're not good talent managers. And Prabhupada was just an expert talent manager. He didn't go to management school, But because he is like an acquired quality, being a Paramahamsa, it's an acquired quality. Of course, we understand Prabhupada also was involved in some entrepreneurial projects in terms of pharmaceutical industries. But Prabhupada is a good example of someone who is a leader who is very expert in managing talent. Now, when we manage talent effectively, there'll be high productivity, there'll be high performance, and people will be very joyful in going about doing their services. However, if we do not implement effective talent management, we see people are morose, they will be resisting. If even they accept to do something, at some point in time they'll be resisting because they're not feeling the joy. They're not going deeper in that prospect, and therefore their productivity becomes low. Their performance becomes, begins to deplete. So, and these are things that any manager can just take some course and learn something to add value to their leadership roles. And therefore, it is important that we understand the need for our devotees as managers to improve our values in terms of how we communicate our change initiatives, how we are getting people involved, how we are inviting people to participate instead of coming to give orders, instead of coming to make pronouncements that may not even align very much with traditional norms. So leadership is a very difficult job. And so you can be a very good business leader, but then you can fail woefully in political leadership. And we see the case of Trump. Trump was just a big a big business tycoon. But now see how he got himself messed up completely in political leadership. Because in political leadership, everyone is watching you. Sometimes you are even trapped. So leadership is a very precarious situation, a precarious position. And therefore, we need collective efforts to be able to sustain a high performance in leadership. I mean, it's like somebody who has a family, and then you come to impose your ideas on your spouse and your children each and every time. And sometimes they will resist. And therefore, it is important that leaders or prospective leaders adopt policies or adopt specific role models that are suitable for sustainable development in leading faith-based nonprofits. And without being able to do that, we may be very expert in charisma, but then at some point in time, people will start resisting. And so the appropriate leadership model, scientifically proven and well utilized for high productivity and high performance in faith-based nonprofits, should be our quest. See, we are not Rajarishis. Rajarishis are very rare on the planet, okay? So if we assume that, okay, and now I know everything, I'm the Rajarishi, I'm directing everyone to Krishna, we may face some high resistance in the future. Therefore, it's good to get people involved. This is the point. Someone asked me a question about some new project that is developing. And then I told him what is the best fit for a faith-based nonprofit. But I think that what I told him was completely strange to him, It was really strange. because he already situated himself, very nicely. Himself and his wife are the managers of the project. And, when he asked me, and then I told him what he needs to do, how to get other people involved and all these things, I don't think that it suited well with him. So business as usual goes. But if we want to be successful in leading change for organizational development, in leading change for team development, we need to look back, we need to look inwards, we need to search the literature and find the leadership models. See, there are many. I was mentioning the other day, remember Hanamananda. I mentioned how there are two major types of leaderships. We have the classical leadership models or classical leadership theories, and we have the contemporary leadership theories or classical or contemporary leadership models. Contemporary leadership models are so many, and every day people, research leadership researchers are developing new contemporary leadership models because of the dynamics of leadership. And so, essential point is that we need to communicate. When we are planning for a change initiative, we need to work it out with supporters. When we work out with supporters, there will be a contribution of ideas. And the value will be potentially high. Then it is not one person's idea. When we get people involved in our decision making, when we get people involved in our policy generation, it works better because two heads are better than one. And then people become more committed to the system because they will see the system as their property because they were involved. They will not see themselves as outsiders. And so the whole idea of leadership is to be able to create a viable future for ourselves and for the organization. But let's get this point clear. We cannot become very good leaders for a long time if we are not self-leaders, if we don't lead ourselves. If we don't have the skills to be able to lead ourselves, it becomes a problem. And this is where we find a number of political elites and even spiritual leaders, they fall prey to their senses and the unruly mind. And so the most important thing for the devotees of Lord Krishna or devotees of our movement is to understand what to do, what not to do, where to go, where not to go, how to be able to stabilize ourselves in self-leadership so that naturally devotees will cooperate with us. And we communicate. We can't say we're leading people when we don't communicate with them. Or we only reach out to them when we need some donation from them. Yeah, so communication is important. I remember the case, I like telling this story. There was this boy from Michigan. I met him when he was doing his master's. And so when he graduated, and normally, as I do with a number of my friends, I used to call my friends just to ask how they're doing with their families and all this stuff. So I called him. I think I was away from the US. I called him. And then when I came back, he sent me a ticket to come for the Ratha Yatra, I think in Farmington Hill or something. So when I went for the Ratha Yatra, I chastised him that, see, you just started a job. Why you have to use your money to come and buy me a ticket? You should have requested the temple management to get me to come. And he said that I did not seem to understand what I did to him. I said, what did I do to you? He said, you were away from the US in another continent, and you called me just to ask how I was doing. He said, my parents don't really care about that. They call me only when they need some money from me. But you just call me. People value Your team members value when they see that you care for them. That is a bond that we need to create. We have to demonstrate to them that we care for you. I'm not just here to engage you in services, but I'm also very much willing to support you in your social development, in material development, spiritual development. Therefore, we call people, we get close to them, we ask how they are doing with their spiritual life. Then they feel cared for and they will feel committed. Some leaders, they never ask their subordinates whether they were able to complete their rounds the previous day. All that they want is work, work, work. I mean, it becomes like a boss and employee type of system. So managing or leading a faith-based nonprofit is more difficult than leading a Fortune 500 company. It's more difficult than leading a Fortune 500 company. Because the Fortune 500 companies, you just give orders. It comes from a descending order, descending way. But here in faith-based nonprofits, you have to get people involved. Because we are not paying them.
So Maharaj, so if you can you hear me? Yes.
Sure.
Okay, yes. So yes, I just wanted to kind of recap a little bit. So the six Goswamis, some of their teachings were a lot of the things that you cover here: humility and service, integrity and ethics, knowledge and wisdom, compassion and empathy, which you were just speaking about, detachment and focus on higher goals, and personal discipline or self-control. Can you share with us a little bit how the chanting, why that's so important for us if we are, I mean, it's important for us anyway, but if we are going to put ourselves out there in any kind of leadership position, why chanting is so important to prevent.
Okay. Yeah, the chanting is so important. It is the panacea that prevents us from getting into trouble. It is the medicine. It is the medicine that prevents us from getting into trouble. See, when you're in leadership, the tendency is to neglect the chanting. And then, even during the japa period, official periods, you're on the phone. But there should be a time for your own spiritual nurturing. And if we neglect, see, I've seen, I'm not criticizing, but I'm telling you what I've seen. I've seen senior leaders in our movement, and right in the temple hall, just after Mangarati, they are checking their phone. Just after Mangarati, they're checking their phone. What is this? What is more important? If we don't fortify ourselves through the chanting enables us to be self-controlled. It facilitates emotional courage. It helps also to prevent mental distress. And therefore, if a leader understands that leadership role entails a lot of traumatic experiences, they need to take their chanting seriously. The chanting first, chanting before anything else. Because Krishna is the strength in us, and we need to understand that without the sanction of Krishna, there is nothing that we can do that will be progressive or that will be sustained. And therefore, worshiping Krishna in form of his holy name should be the first thing that a leader should do. And that we should do that as an example for our team members. Without the chanting, in fact, the major reason why a number of leaders fall down, it's because they neglect the chanting. You go to any leader who has fallen down. At some point in time, they neglect the chanting. They think there are other things that are more important to do. There are more managerial things to deal with than the chanting. And so instead of using the Brahma Muhurta hours for the chanting, they're using the Brahma Muhurta hours for management. So this is very, very dangerous. It's very dangerous. I was in Mayapur, and then during Japa period, I was chanting with some brahmacharis. And one of Prabhupada disciple came to me and said, he wants to talk with me. I said, you cannot talk with me by this time. He was surprised. I said, this is Japa period, okay? This is the time I need to connect with Krishna. You're talking, I'm available on this planet. You can talk with me anytime. Not this time. This time, my talk is with Krishna. He felt disappointed and perhaps maybe uncomfortable and maybe even annoying, but first, I have to protect myself. And then I can be available to help others. So without situating ourselves in the proper mood of getting ourselves engrossed in Krishna consciousness, how are we going to be able to help others in terms of managing personnel or leading people or leading teams? Yeah, so this is a foundational problem that we need to understand, that this is the cause of major problems that leaders face. We neglect chanting, and we think there are more important things to do than the chanting. There isn't any other thing we are doing is just to bring us to that level where we can chant nicely. It's not that something else is more important than the chanting. Chanting is the beginning, the middle, and the end. We are preaching. We go to different, high-profile people to preach to them and all those things. And then the whole idea is that they should come to the temple or read books, read Prabhupada's books, and at some point in time, they should be exposed to the chanting. This is the ultimate. Krishna Prema Pumato Mahat. It comes through the chanting. So the chanting is very important for any sadhaka, any devotee who wants to attain perfection, who wants to become endeared to Krishna, who wants to become successful in their leadership position. They cannot neglect the chant. In fact, the leader should chant even more rounds than the people who are not in position of power. Yes, any other comment or question?
Yes.
My question?
Yes, go ahead.
But this is Bhagavat Ananda Das. Maharaj, please accept my obeisance. It's so wonderful to see you. And I've been watching some of your videos, so it's nice to see you today.
Pleasure.
My query is, how do you see yourself and, let's say, Bhakti Vasudeva Swami? How do you feel that you're succeeding in continuing the legacy of Bhakti Vasudeva Swami for the many devotees who really, love him and want to follow him and so many things like that? How do you feel that's going?
Yeah, you see, thank you very much for your intriguing question. Now, Bhakti Vasudeva Swami, he gave instructions to different people. So I can speak for myself, because some of the instructions he gave to some people are private and some are public. And so I can say that he had given me some type of very terrible instructions. Terrible in the sense that they are public. He made a public pronouncement in the midst of devotees. He said he wants Vasudeva to do this. And so the success of my spiritual life depends on how I execute the instructions of Bhakti Vasudeva Swami. And the major instructions he has given to me, I've actually done them. And if I leave my body right now, I'm fully satisfied. Because the major things he asked me to do, I've executed them. Anything else I'm doing, it's just by the way. Yeah, so you measure how you are progressing in your spiritual life by dint of how you have pleased your spiritual master by executing their instructions. He gave me heavy instructions. In fact, when he was to leave his body in Gitanagari, I was afraid. I avoided going to see him because I know what could happen. But I was not successful in avoiding him completely. So, but then one of the caregivers came to tell us that they want senior disciples to go and render personal service before Maharaj leaves. So I went there, and I said I'm going to clean his toilet, his restroom. But then you have to go into his room before you enter into the toilet. So immediately I entered the room, he saw me, he was on the bed, and then he saw me, and these were exact statements. Oh, here comes him. He said, "Oh, Vasudev, I am leaving. You stop this. You stop this. You stop this. Whatever you see, you say it. If they don't follow, you're free from the reactions." He said, "You have been keeping quiet for decades." And it's true. I used to be very, very outspoken and like very, very tough. But I realized that devotees don't like that. So I decided, all right, I will also act like one of you. Come sadhu, just be quiet. He didn't like that. So he pointed that out to me, and he gave me a series of other instructions. In fact, Bhakti Vasudeva Swami, he told me, imagine, someone who has no master's degree at the time, he told me, "Vasudev, go and preach to the professors." And going to preach to professors means that you have to have a PhD or a master's degree to be able to go and present papers at their conferences and interact with them. I was not having that at the time. But one thing I realized from my interactions with him and his instructions to me is that the Guru may give you a very difficult instruction. But you know what? The instruction of the Guru is also encapsulated with empowerment. So if you have the faith and love for your Guru and you go ahead to implement that instruction, the empowerment comes. And I've seen that in my own life. So when he told me to go and preach to the professors, I started with going to the conferences to make presentations at conferences. And so even the devotees, his own disciples, the managers of at the time, they were skeptical about my my so-called conference presentations. They said, "This Vasudev, he was one of us here as temple president. Where did he get the skills to go to present papers at conferences?" But because normally I don't speak to the devotees, but I send him reports every month. And he broadcasts all the things I'm doing to the devotees. And people were utterly shocked. But it wasn't my power, because I wanted to please him. So he gave that empowerment to be able to execute his orders. So I did that. And my first 3 years, I had my first 25 publications in peer-reviewed journals. And if you know any professor, you ask them whether that is possible. They will tell you, no, it's not possible. And so when that was done, he said, "Oh, Vasudev, just go and get a PhD." That's how I ended up going to get a PhD. So, and I'm seeing why he asked me to do that. And this time, see, my PhD is not in religion, it's not in philosophy, it's in applied management and decision sciences. And so I go to management science conferences, leadership conferences, and present papers purely based on Vedic science in providing solutions to social, leadership, and management issues, but research-based, scientifically put together and presented. From now till November, I have 10 academic conferences that my proposals have already been accepted. My abstracts have already been accepted for presentations. Again, that is very rare for the traditional professor. So yeah, to know, like back to your question, to know what is your progress in fulfilling, sustaining the energies of your guru. The instruction given to you, are you able to execute them? So I can tell you, yes, the major hurdles, the major difficult instructions he gave to me, I already done them.
Thank you, Maharaj. That's great. Okay,
You're
my next question is, suppose I'm a devotee who let's say I've never met Bhakti Swami, but I've learned about him and taken shelter of him as far as I'm able, getting my spiritual enthusiasm and so many things. But I'm not initiated into the ISKCON society properly. Then how would you advise me? What should I do going forward?
Yeah, thank you. Again, that's a very insightful, intriguing question. There are people, I remember one guy, he was in Florida, and he read Bhakti Swami's books. And he came to Gitanagari, he said, this is his guru, he wants to take initiation from this guru. So the devotee told him, oh, he has passed away. He was devastated, completely devastated. So we encouraged him to align with any other guru in ISKCON and have Bhakti Chitta as his Siksha guru. He will still be guiding him. I know of also some devotees who are not necessarily initiated by Bhakti Chitta Swami, but they render services to Bhakti Chitta Swami more than even the disciples. I know of some devotees like that. I know a couple from London, from England there, who travel all over the world, interviewing people, developing videos on the pastimes of Bhakti Chitta Swami. They are not necessarily his disciples, but they are connected with him in spirit and in devotion because of the conviction they have for him about his teachings and his love for the general mass of devotees. So, and when I went to South America, I remember the first time I went to South America, there were a bunch of these devotees. I remember one of these devotees is initiated by Japataka Swami Maharaj. But he told me that because of his intense love for Bhakti Swami, and then he couldn't take initiation from him before he left, that even when Japataka Swami was giving him initiation, he said he has to chant the two pranams. He has to chant Bhakti Swami's pranam and his Japataka Swami's pranam. So there are people who do not necessarily physically take initiation from him or devotionally took initiation from him, but they are very, very connected with him. I know one lawyer, she did international law, and she told me her stories, how Bhakti Swami comes to her, come to her every here and then to give her instructions. Yeah. Yeah, so the connect is a devotional, a spiritual internalization of the connections, and so you may not necessarily need to take initiation from him and become very strongly connected with him. Yeah, people, and I met a number of people who were not really physically initiated by him, but they have a strong bonding that exists. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Maharaj. That's very, very insightful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Achyutam Keshavam Krishna Damodaram Ramanarayanam Janaki